Talk about my first board experience, and like, to be totally honest with you, I think this guy sums it up. If you're joining a board because you want to build your CV, go and do an accounting degree. It'll be more fun, okay? And I spoke to a few people. I did a bit of research. I spoke to a few people about this, and they all kind of, for me, confirmed with me that it was the same thing. In fact, some of them just used words like needing to be dragged, kicking and screaming back to each meeting. It can be a difficult gig, okay? And so the question would be, well, why would you do it? And for me, the reason that you would do it is because there's actually a lot to do. There's a lot to get done. It's not coincidental that we are the adult cohort that have the most out of any generation in human history. We're the most in debt, we're the most medicated, we're the most addicted, okay, we're the most overweight. We have some struggles. Our inequality is the highest rate that it's ever been in human existence, which brings a whole lot of social dysfunction factors with that. Some of you might have read The Spirit Level by Rhys Williams, who really sums up this idea that it's not per capita growth in GDP that creates social dysfunction. It's actually the difference in income within those countries that creates social dysfunction. And so we have these challenges. We have climate change, we have human trafficking, these things that we have at our fingertips that we need to work out solutions to. And the non-for-profit world is a mechanism to be able to approach that. I think for a long time, we've left it to government and to business, the two key pillars, and how's that working out for us, right? There was a time where when things were bothering us, we'd get out and we'd protest and we'd march in the streets. And yes, we're seeing a little bit more of that coming back now. But for a lot of us, our capacity to be able to contribute to these issues are limited. And so one of the ways that we can do that is through the non-for-profit world. And so we really need to think about, well, why, okay? By the way, I love a Shutterstock photo, so don't mind me. The rest of the presentation is pretty much going to be some more photos that we've put up where we paid for them. The way that we are going to be able to create solutions to these problems, the way that we're going to be able to overcome these difficulties, the way we're going to be able to, if you like, collaborate together to grow our opportunities and to grow the solutions to these problems is going to be through getting together, getting our hands dirty, getting in and getting the job done. And as I said, one of the key ways that we're going to be able to do that is through non-profits. That doesn't necessarily answer the question, though, about why we need aspiring leaders in non-for-profits, but we'll talk about that in a little while. I wanted to talk a bit more about the role of non-for-profits, and I think Steph's outlined for you that there are some incredible organisations across Australia doing some amazing things. This one's in my own backyard. This is the red-tailed black cockatoo. Western Australia, in the little corner of the world that I live in Mandurah, which is about an hour south of Perth, and it's reached vulnerable status. This is a really important part of Indigenous history. It's an important part of our fauna in Western Australia, and it's reached vulnerable status. And so there's an organisation, a conservation society, that's been set up to protect this particular cockatoo and a whole lot of different native animals that have reached a really, really vulnerable, really endangered status. And so, of course, we need to do something about them, because who's fighting the fight for this guy, right? Who's going out there and making sure that we are looking after his future? And the way that that's being done is through this particular conservation society. So this is just one example. The interesting thing about the conservation society is that they didn't get together and with 10 of their friends and say, let's create an organisation. We're going to need an accountant, we're going to need a lawyer, we're going to need someone that's an environmental scientist, we're going to need a climatologist. They got together and went, hey, you guys, you 5 people, you're all as passionate about this topic as I am. Let's start an organisation. And that's what they did. So they formed a board, they got incorporated, they went out there and they just started doing some stuff. And they're doing a good job. But they have one part-time staff member who's the CEO. Also the person who's responsible for cleaning out the cages. Also the admin person. Also the secretary to the board. Also the, every single role within this organisation is completed by this one part-time person with a team of volunteers. And every now and then they get some money and they get a projects person on board that comes on and helps them out. But essentially this organisation is run by 0.5 FTE and a board of volunteers. A board of volunteers who, I want to emphasise, as I said, didn't get together because they all went, let's build the strongest organisation that we could. They got together because they said, we've actually got to do something about this endangered animal that's reached crisis point. And so that's why they formed. And so what we tend to see is, well, we think, okay, this is great, these guys are doing remarkable things, but imagine what they could do if they had that wraparound support that Steph talked about in terms of going out and finding those key people that are going to be able to contribute to the success. And so this, I think, is the key in terms of where we're moving to as non-for-profits organisations. We have to be able to do good and do well at the same time. And the thing about non-for-profit is even we've replaced the word profit with surplus because we don't dare want to talk about the idea of profit. We're scared as organisations. I set up a non-profit organisation, I run one, I know for the longest time the idea of taking on staff, the idea of investing in ourselves, coming over and being involved in professional development opportunities, that sort of stuff was terrifying because, geez, if we get questioned, it's all for me about, saving the cockatoo. So for so long, we've been scared as non-for-profit organisations about allowing ourselves to do well as well as doing good. Things like, being able to have some sort of equity in terms of what we pay our staff, because so long it's been like, oh, well, if you want to work in the non-for-profit world, you've got to take a substantial pay cut. Things like even offices and that sort of thing. How many non-for-profits do you walk into and they've got, they've been handed a desk and a chair from an organisation that said, oh, we're getting rid of some stuff. Here, take our desk. It shouldn't be that way. Non-profit organisations are filling a key role in our society, and they should be able to do good and do well at the same time. And so to be able to do that, well, how do we do that? One of the things that we've got to do is we've got to be able to attract good people into these board positions, into these organisations, because until we can do that, until we can get new people with new ideas around the table, looking at things in a new way, how are we meant to innovate? How are we meant to change the way that we do things? Because what we need in these organisations now is not the single bottom line about social return. It can't just be about the good that we do in the community. We have to be able to be good organisations with a double bottom line. We have to be able to be creating revenues that give us the opportunity to provide that social impact. And so to be able to do that, as I say, the key is going to be having good people with new ideas around the table, with new skill sets, having new conversations. And so I really want you to think about that in the context of deciding whether or not you're ready to become a board member. Because the key thing is not, do I want to build my CV? As I say, if you're, we all know those people as well. We all know the people that are doing it because they want the life experience and they get there and, they sign up to the first meeting and then they don't come to 5 after that because it's all about, I've overcommitted myself because I want my CV to look really good. As I say, if you're doing that by joining a non-for-profit board, you're doing it for the wrong reasons and you're not actually going to get the return that you're looking for. The reason that we need to do it is because we need another great Shutterstock photo. We need innovation, okay? We need to innovate these organisations. We need to find new ways to do it. I'm a founder of a non-for-profit organisation. I set up an organisation when I was 17 called Community Solutions, and we morphed it into an organisation that we're running now called The Makers. An amazing team of staff and volunteers, board, and our whole intention is around finding new ways to be able to get things done. Because as I said earlier, this whole objective around creating our own solutions to our own problems is something that more and more so is going to become prevalent in our society. We can't rely on they to do something about it. We've got to do something about it ourselves. And the non-for-profit sector is a key way to be able to do that. The way that we do that and the way that I think we need to think about it across the board is by following these 3 kind of ideas. The first one is to inspire ideas. The way that we inspire ideas is we share stories. We get out, we talk to people. We don't just sort of say, okay, as a non-for-profit organisation, we're going to do the old template awareness campaign. As was demonstrated to us this morning during Steph's presentation, if you're going to run an awareness campaign, do something that's going to blow the minds of every person in the room. People are going to walk in and go, wow, that was the most amazing night of my life. And we do that by looking at it differently. So once we've kind of got those ideas inspired and we've shared stories and we've got people excited, then we actually have to take a stance and say, what do we need to be able to do this as effectively and as efficiently as we can? And sometimes we just assume as non-profit board directors or as CEOs of non-for-profit organisations, Declan and I flew in from Perth this morning at about 1 o'clock, so we're a bit tired. Cultivating capacity is what you need to do after that. You need to be able to really admit to yourself that there's things that you need to have, there's skills that you need to develop, there's skills that you need to develop within your organisation, and not be afraid to go out and ask people to assist you with those things. And so those mentors, those people that are going to be there to support you, being a mentor yourself. If you've got something to offer, it doesn't matter if you are 17 or 72, which is the age range of the staff and board in my organisation, 17 to 72, it doesn't matter how old you are. If you've got something to contribute, if you can add some way to cultivating the capacity in the non-for-profit organisation that you're joining, then that's a pretty good indicator that joining a non-for-profit is a good idea for you. And the next thing I'd say, the final one to me, which is the role of the board, and I think this is really important. It used to be that, the role of the board was around governance and strategy. Yeah, that's all true, that's fine. But more and more what we're seeing is these young founders are starting these organisations, is that, Steph talked before about taking and it's the nightmare scenario for any founder of a non-profit, but taking the resignation in the back pocket and getting ready to use it. And I've done it myself. I've walked into a room knowing that I needed my board to make a big decision, this board of an organisation that was driven by my passion and my energy, supported by all of the people that were going to be there, and being prepared to say, look, guys, this is not blackmail, but I'm telling you, this is the most important decision that we're going to make. And as the person who's kind of got it here, I'm saying to you, this is what we need to do. The role of the board is to advance action. The role of the board, especially in these small organisations that do have these founding CEOs, the role of the board is to support the CEO, to work with the staff, to work with the volunteers to get good outcomes. It's not about sitting at this top level down upon the organisation and having this view that you have all of the answers. It's about working with those people to be able to advance action in some way. And I think that's a key lesson that board members should really consider before they get into the space. Because so often what we see is people, particularly when they're kind of finished their careers and they're kind of going, okay, I want to give back, I'm going to join a non-profit board, and maybe don't have that good, strong awareness of what the culture of non-profit organisations are. They go in there and we're here. We've got all the answers and we're going to tell you how it's done, and I've got 100 years in the corporate world experience, and so therefore you need to do it the way that I'm telling you to. That's not the role of a board in a modern, contemporary non-profit organisation. The role of the board is to work with the staff, to work with the people that are passionate about it, to help achieve an outcome by, I think, following an approach like this. So one of the things that we did as an example of that was tough is we had a scenario where we were running the Youth on Health Festival, which is Australia's largest health promotion festival for young people. And the intention around YoFest, which started in the little town that I live in Mandurah in 1998, was about getting young people together, helping them to use the arts, so drama, dance, or visual arts, as a mechanism for being able to promote health. Little events held all around the place, live audiences that give them the chance to learn about it. So we've been doing that for a while. We were running a government contract as well to kind of subsidise things, and because it was in an area that we were interested in about workforce development. Weren't paying enough attention, I guess, to the way that the organisation was growing, and it got to the stage where the workforce development stuff, this government contract that we were running was making up 70% of the organisation's revenue. And then one day, at the absolute kind of whim of government, that contract was cancelled across the state, and we were in a position where we had to totally rethink our operations. During the time that we've been running, we were able to buy and pay off a property, and so we had some equity behind us. So it was time to look at, okay, well, what do we do as an organisation? After much discussion and after lots of kind of really looking at where we need to go, we decided to sell the property that we'd had that had increased in value, which we'd paid off, use that as the sustainability to really reinvent ourselves, and that's where the idea of the Makers came from. And the reason that I've given you that example is because boards of the past, particularly in this organisation and in organisations that I've been part of, would have said, no, you're not going to sell that asset. That asset is our sustainability. If you get rid of it and you invest that in short-term growth, then your long-term sustainability is eroded. Absolutely. But what's the point in being an organisation that's just sitting around waiting for the sun to come up, waiting for the sun to come down, and not actually fulfilling purpose? The role of non-profits is to fulfill a purpose. The role is to get something done. And so the board, much to my delight, agreed that we should move in this direction. That was 2 years ago. What we've been able to do since then, first of all, is set up MakePlex, which is an innovation hub that we're trialling in Mandurah. We've got people coming through all the time. It's a leadership development centre. It's a co-working space. It's an activation place where we're holding events to really activate the local community. It's about building capacity of young people so that they can contribute to their community and they can solve their own community problems. In lots of discussions with agencies across Western Australia about rolling this model out into every regional city in the state, alongside this leadership development activities, it's going well, I guess is what I'm trying to say to you. It's going well, it's working out nicely, much to my relief. And the reason that it's going well and the reason that we're able to do this is because the board members as individuals, all of the staff, not just myself, but the entire team, the volunteers, the stakeholders in the community, we're able to sit around the table and have good open dialogue, good discussions about where we need to go and what problem we need to solve and what purpose we want to achieve. And that's one of those key things that I think so many non-profit organisations forget. If you're joining one, make sure when you sign up that you know what the purpose of the organisation is. And don't just know it, make sure that it aligns with your values. Make sure that it aligns with the things that you're passionate about. Make sure that you feel as though your contribution is going to be a worthy one. Because otherwise, you're just another seat on the table and you'll look like the guy at the start. I think, for me, where this is kind of coming from, this new contemporary version of a non-profit, and usually, to be totally honest, they are run by founding CEOs who are under 40. That seems to be the way that it is. But I think where it's coming from is this general idea of collectivism, this general idea that in society we want to do more together to solve our own problems. And if you think about it, crowdsourcing, crowdfunding, okay? You think about the way that we're able to get things done. You think about co-working as an idea. People all around the country and all around the world are just getting together and working together in these one places just so that they can connect with each other. It's interesting that at a time where we've got more capacity to connect digitally than ever before, what seems to be happening as a growing trend is that people actually want to connect with each other physically. People actually want to get chatting. And what it's giving us to do, what this technology is giving us to do more than ever before is it's giving us the chance to be able to collectively solve problems. It's giving us the chance to come together and solve these challenges. And that's why the new contemporary non-for-profit looks like it is, like it does. And that's why as board members, when you go into this, you need to be thinking about this and thinking, okay, is this something that I want to be a part of? Because with being a board member, yes, there's huge responsibilities. There's, all of the governance and there's making sure that you understand your role as a board member and your obligations as board members. But what there is a broader obligation to the problem that you're there to solve. And you have to go into it knowing that you're a problem solver, that you're a part of a team now that is going to be working towards achieving an outcome. So perhaps I was a little harsh, because I think the reality is joining boards is a great way to meet new people, it's a great way to be able to develop your skills, it's a great way to be able to give back in some form. And so it's not always like this, although I think everyone that's on a board has got an example of this, right? But it's not always like this. And so what I would say to you is find the right organisation, because there's no shortage of non-profit organisations that you can be part of, but don't sign up to the first one that is put in front of you, okay? Because if you do, you're just not going to get out of it what you should be getting out of it. The second is make sure that the values of the organisation aligns to yours. And when I talk about values, I mean really look at how they operate. What is their integrity like? Do they spend 80% of their revenue on their staff and all drive around? And are you comfortable with that? Look at what the integrity is of the organisation, look at the values of the organisation and make sure that it aligns with yours. Thirdly, I think, and this is the key one, make sure that you go into it with a very clear idea of what the role of the new board member is. And the role of the new board member is not to go in there, and I'm very lucky. I've got an amazing board who are made up of, supporters and mentors, people that are willing to question you but support you at the same time. That's the role of the board now. The role of the board is to work with the organisation to help achieve the outcome. And it wouldn't be a presentation without a quote, and I think this guy kind of knew what he was talking about when he said the measure of intelligence is the ability to change. We have to actually change the way that we do things. Those list of problems that we spoke about at the start are real problems. Problems that we're all faced with all of the time, and things that we need to find new ways to tackle. Because it's not good enough, to be honest, that in a society where we have such an abundance of wealth and such an abundance of capacity in terms of our knowledge and our wisdom and our experience, and such an abundance of technology, that we should face the problems that we do to the extent that we do. And the way that we're going to be able to pull ourselves out of it is through this collectivism. It's through this coming together and solving these problems ourselves, not relying on some other agency to solve them. I want to say to you, go and grab the opportunities as board members, as potential board members, but it doesn't matter. If you're a board member if you're a board member already, or if you're seeking a board position, or you want to start an organisation, or you just want to volunteer for a good cause, it doesn't matter, just do something. And I think when you look in a room, people like this who have come along to these sorts of opportunities, and you know these people, you see them all the time. Yes, we have our fair share of challenges to face, that's clear, but I think that it gives you great hope and great optimism when you think about the kind of directions that we're heading and the kind of stories and achievements that we're making. So thanks very much. That's what I really wanted to share with you today, and I appreciate the opportunity, Raf. Thank you.